Hello everybody, my name is Adam Tom. I'm a filmmaker and photographer from Alberta, Canada. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of an unorthodox video on my YouTube channel here. And that's because I'm going to be reviewing a plugin. Today I'm going to be looking at Dehancer Pro and looking particularly at how I use it. And we're going to be diving into a little bit about my thoughts on the film look that seems to be really popular right now. Before we get into this, I just want to say that I am not an expert colorist. I am not somebody who is pulled in by the latest and greatest technology often, or firmware updates, or new tools that come up in the filmmaking space. And so I'm going to speak mainly from an experiential level on this plugin. We're not going to be going into a lot of the tabs in the plugin, and nor is this going to be an in-depth tutorial. There are more than enough resources on YouTube going through this plugin in a very in-depth way, teaching it and how to use it. I'll give you sort of my setup in using it, and we'll go into DaVinci and I can show you that. But don't expect a very in-depth tutorial on this. I mainly want to speak about the film look itself, and beyond the film look, what is the most important aspects of a filmic image. And by that I mean more of a cinematic image. Certainly grain is a part of that, but I think something that is overlooked more times than not today is that lighting is the most important thing. And not just lighting, but obviously what's in the image. And oftentimes, I think we also overlook the other things like art direction in an image and what a character or talent is doing in the image as well, their movement and how the camera moves with that. I think all of these things are very important, and when we get into discussions like this, where we kind of finally focus on one aspect when it comes to a plugin like this, we lose sight of the whole image. And because of that, we get a less cinematic image than we could have otherwise. So, though I'm going to speak on this plugin and what I like about it and don't like about it and how I use it, I just want to say that I think those things are extremely important, and I don't want you to lose sight of those things at the expense of just getting grain or halation in your image. How I go about using Dehancer is I do my DaVinci Resolve color to space transform. And I usually go from the Canon log, which is what I tend to film in mostly right now, into DaVinci Wide Gamut. And then I make another node that goes from the DaVinci Wide Gamut into Rec 709. And from there, I have a bunch of nodes in between those where I make most of my adjustments, like white balance, exposure, and any other micro adjustments I might need. And I use Dehancer as sort of a finishing profile, I guess you could say. The thing I really, really love about Dehancer is it reminds me of when I used to use Magic Bullet looks, and particularly their film plugin. And what I liked about that plugin, and I haven't used it for years, I had it on a 2016 MacBook Pro, and every time I would use it, my MacBook would burn my fingers. So it really ran its course through that laptop. But what I liked about it was that the grain and not just the grain, but the film scans themselves actually affected the whole image. And rather than having sort of the static film grain that you have built into DaVinci Resolve or like a film overlay, Dehancer actually has an algorithm, and I don't understand the algorithm myself. But from what I understand, it has an algorithm built in that actually affects your highlights and shadows dynamically. This is quite obvious when you actually look at an image that you're using it on. It's not just adding grain to the image, but it's actually affecting its blacks and whites and its colors even. And all of this is completely customizable within the Dehancer plugin, but it's why I say it kind of blends the image nicely and gives you a really nice polished look to finish your grade with. I know it's possible to use Dehancer to completely convert your log footage. I don't know how to do that, and for myself, I like to have all of my adjustments on its own nodes so that I can give I can go back and adjust as I need. A little bit more accessibly than if I had everything done in just the Dehancer panel. So for me, the Dehancer plugin is a sort of final touch to the image. And I know it can get very in depth, but for me, I've really enjoyed the kind of finish it gives my images. Now, in terms of grain, I've heard a lot of people say that Dehancer is maybe a little bit overpowering. I don't find that so much. I mean, it's a completely, you can adjust the strength of the grain right in the plugin. So if it is too strong, it's very easy to go in and adjust. I tend to use the 65 millimeter grain for pretty much everything that I shoot and that I'm using this plugin with. I just tend to sort of like the size and the strength of it a little bit more than the 35. For me, the 35 millimeter grain, even when I turn it down a lot and nearly all the way, it just feels a little bit too strong and kind of in your face for me. And so I tend to really like the 65 mil. As far as halation goes with the Dehancer, I tend to not use it a whole lot. I am not a big fan of it. I find it looks a little bit fake and forced. I've seen great examples of other people using it in really good scenarios where it's turned out quite well, but for my taste and for how I use this plugin, it's not something I touch a lot of the time. The thing about any film conversion plugin or LUT is that you're never going to be able to one-to-one imitate film. And maybe that's disappointing to hear, but I just find that today there seems to be a really big obsession with trying to do like a digital conversion to film. And I think that's the wrong approach myself. It's not to say you can't get cinematic images. That's doable whether you're shooting on film or digital. But my point is that when you try to one-to-one imitate film by shooting on digital, I just don't know if it's possible. Even with the functionality of Dehancer, where you can get a little bit of a nicer highlight roll-off through the plugin, and it can take back some of the digital edge, it's never going to take it back completely. And when you're looking at an image shot on film versus digital, generally it's got a nicer highlight roll off. It's a little bit smoother. And so that is one aspect I do think that is overlooked a little bit when we're speaking on the film look or film conversions. It's not just about grain, it's about lighting, it's about highlight roll offs and how the shadows and highlights work together that way. But like I said, I don't think this is a plugin that you should buy to try and replicate one-to-one a film conversion. Like to completely replicate the image of film, I'm of the opinion that you need to shoot on film. But I think what this plugin is good for is if you're looking to add a bit more character to your image for a final grade. And it can add a little bit more character, a little bit more texture, and I prefer it over all of the film overlays that I've used in the past. I've had tons of stock film grain assets and overlays that I've used over the years, and though they worked for me at the time, in hindsight, I wish I had something like Dehancer back then to use instead. And it's simply the fact that it sort of blends the image all together a little bit more nicely. The grain actually affects the image. It doesn't just have a sort of overlay that's over top of everything in an equal strength. And it gives a really nice touch to our story. I think that's one of the things that we can lose sight of when we're speaking about these sorts of plugins and assets and tools, is we can completely lose sight of the story. And I think that it's a temptation, but it doesn't have to be if we're thinking about these plugins and these assets in the right way. So if you are going to pick this plugin up, don't treat it like it's going to give you a one-to-one replica of shooting on film. At the end of the day, all image making, cinematography and photography is about communicating. in ways that are unspoken. And using something like film grain, even when you're shooting on digital, though it's not going to give you the one-to-one replica, you can get pretty close, I'll admit. Um, but you can't get one-to-one, but it can add more depth to your story. Again, this is a visual medium, so the subtleties of how we shoot things and how we color and how we present images to people matters, even to the smallest detail. So I just want to thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, I am going to be posting videos on this channel going forward. They're not going to be review oriented or tutorial oriented necessarily, but they are going to be just videos like this, chatting in front of the camera, speaking about photography, film, the image, all of those kinds of things. If you want to read more, you can check out my Substack. It's called Light from Light, and I will leave the link for that in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Dehancer for sponsoring this video. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.